Hi everyone, I'm Carolyn Cole from the Eastern Shoveltown Cultural District, and I'm here with another one of our talented artists, Karole Nicholson. Now the first thing I want to ask Karole is, you're described as a pastelist, and I know the public, the first thing they're going to say is, what is a pastelist? So could you tell us?
Sure, and that's a good question, because sometimes people say, is that chalk, or what is that you're working with? And I paint with my pastels, and what I feel is that I don't do a lot of oil painting or other mediums, so I really am committed to working in pastel. But a pastelist uses actually it looks a lot like chalk, but it's pretty high end. You use that to paint. And so we don't use brushes, we don't use solvents, and actually pastel is the purest of pigments. It's actually pigment and a little binder. So it has, if you look at Degas and some of the old works, pastels have held up better than anything because they haven't been broken down by oils and things like that. And so it will last just forever, and it's pure. So I feel like, of course, it gets on your hands and you get kind of dirty, and I don't work with gloves, but that's what a pastelist is, someone that works purely in pastel and on different surfaces.
Okay, and I understand that you've been an artist or painting for a little more than 30 years.
Well, and that's true. In high school I was always in the art club and really involved, and then in 2005 I finally graduated from many years going to Rhode Island School of Design. But I was in a program, an evening program, as a graphic designer, and it was more advertising art that I was studying then. But all over those years I've done jewelry making and pottery and ceramics and all those things. So I feel like art has been part of my life since I was a teenager. But in 2008, after I finished my classes at RISD, I said, I want to do fine arts again. I want to do art that I want to create, not for work, but for pleasure. And I started out like as a hobbyist, but now I take it pretty seriously. It's a very important part of my life. And so it has been a long time. The older I get, I'm losing track. Actually, it's probably more than 30 years by now. So.
Well, when you look at your art, you see the art of a very experienced artist, so you know that your eye is very good.
Thank you.
And I noticed these particular sunflowers, and I understand, were you in Italy when you did
Yes,
this?
actually. This particular painting, I call it Rainy Day Sunflowers, and it's because we were in Italy a couple years ago. I was with 4 other artists, and instead of taking a workshop, we decided to rent a villa and go there for 2 weeks and paint. It was a dream for all of us, and it started over a glass of wine one night. We said, oh, wouldn't you love to go? And we did it, And so it was really a very nice experience. And sometimes when you have an experience like that, we just did the best we could to select a great villa, to be up in a hill town in Umbria, and it turned out to be the most perfect trip from the moment we left, and the limo driver getting us and circumventing the city of Boston and get us there in time, to the moment we came back. It was just perfect in every way. The weather was, it had just been 100 degrees in Italy, and when we got there it went down to like the 80s and clear and crisp. So what happened for 2 weeks, we painted every day, twice a day. We'd go out in the afternoon, come back and have a little poolside relaxation, and then go back out in the early evening. And of course they stay up late there and they eat late. But what happened is, on the last 2 days that we were there, we did get some rain. So we had painted at a farm, a sunflower farm. It was Luca's place. And actually that was the view from Luca's place right up here. So those were sunflowers, and off in the distance are villas and things like that. So he had given us a bunch of sunflowers, and we took them back and put them in a vase. And we all just kind of set up a still life and painted. And so that's the sunflowers I've always enjoyed. And what perfect place to see sunflowers.
Absolutely.
Italy. Oh man, I couldn't get enough. We were crying at times. It was so exciting. So yeah, it was a great.
Sounds wonderful.
It was. It was great in every way. And sometimes you're almost a little afraid to try it again, because maybe it won't be so perfect. But that's not going to stop me.
No,
that's not going to stop
me.
It shouldn't. No, it won't. It won't. No.
Well, let's move on. And
okay, sure.
Look at some of your other work.
Yes, you'll see that I kind of can go in different directions. So florals have been very important to me, and I really enjoy, because I have a garden and all. But what we have here, this is kind of an interesting thing, because I did something that we artists don't often like to do, but every once in a while we do it, is I painted for a frame. I had the frame, I had the mat, and this is like a tone-on-tone frame and mat. There was a whole different painting in there, and it was just, I'd framed it, and it had been sitting there for a while, and I said, you know what, I don't know if I really like that in there. So when I took it out, I said, what will I put in there? And I thought of poppies, and I thought of the vibration of red with the green, and you know, it's a kind of it's not a warm, fiery red, it's a little cool red, and I thought that it would be kind of nice to do something with just two complementary colors. So this is an experimenting and painting for the frame, which is kind of intense because you're really thinking about your colors.
Right.
It's not, you know, as spontaneous, but in a way it was just a good thing to do, and so I thought, well, let's just do that. So that's what that is. So that's a little different, and
I think with the way you framed it, it's very relaxing.
yeah.
And rather than you expect the red to be, you know,
That's a good point.
It's very relaxing.
Yeah.
You know, you want to sit back with a glass of wine and
Yeah.
enjoy the painting.
Doesn't take much for me in a glass of wine. But you know, that's a good point, and I think it could have something to do with just that calm background.
Right.
So, and then the red is not as bright, it's just a little calming red. So if red can be calming, we kind of did that. So thanks
Yeah.
for noticing that.
Now, we talk about these paintings, and I love the way they're framed and matted. It's very different.
Yes, it is. And you know, this is another experiment, and I think after working since 2008, now we're almost going on, it's a lot of years that I've
Yeah.
been painting. And what will happen is, I don't do the math really quick, you know, you work and you work and work in a medium, and then you just think you've got to mix it up. So these are all painted on a black surface. I paint pretty much exclusively on sandpaper. And when you say sandpaper, it's like taking sandpaper you use, but you know, it's a special kind, but it's made by the same companies that make sandpaper that carpenters use and all. They just do a high-grade sandpaper for this kind of work. So this is done on a black sanded paper. It's been kind of coated in black. So what happens with that, with black, you have to work very bright in order to make it happen. So you'll notice this palette is extremely bright, but there's still black showing through in some places. And so, you know, this was an experiment in just working the black, and with that brightness and using alternative colors. You know, you don't usually see purple hens, but
Right.
to me, you still know it's a hen because,
Right.
you know, it has to do with the coloring there as far as the shading. If you get your values right, then usually it'll still read like what you want it to read. And the person that frames my artwork, she thought that this would be an interesting way to frame it. And so I don't use a lot of mats, but for certain things, it really works well. So I think it sets it off. I mean, this is at the train station, and I didn't paint it at the moment because people move way too fast at the train station. But you know, I caught some reference photography, and to me, the gathering of people and the bodies standing there was kind of just a fun thing to capture. And so I'm always trying to, you know, do a little bit with landscape. Right now, most recently, I've been painting more landscapes, but I do florals, and I will do the human form, but I usually don't go into that a lot, you know. I do like animals, and you know, it's like every cow painting I've done, I've sold. So I think that there's something, people do like animals too,
Right.
you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So.
Well, there's something very earthy about
Yeah.
like chickens and cows. And
Yeah.
cows are so warm
Yeah,
and
yeah,
friendly. So.
right. And yeah, today I saw some cows and I stopped, you know, and I was like talking to them and I took some photos because I just feel like, you know, they have really beautiful structure too. It's angular, and the light hits their black parts, and it looks purple and blue. And so I feel like they call for me to paint. One of my first paintings that I ever sold was this cow looking straight at you, and the lady, I met her many years after, and she bought it at the museum where it was on display, and she said, "I bought your cows." I'm like, "Oh my God, I remember that." And sometimes, you know, we always photograph our work, so sometimes I'll come across some older work and look, and I'm like, wonder what home that's in now, and you know, what's going on there. So it was really nice because I still love that painting, so it's kind of nice to hear that.
And I don't know if the home viewer can see it, but the shading is very interesting, the shadows, and very interesting using the black background.
Yeah,
And it comes through, you know, there's a lot of
yeah,
different...
right in there. It
Yeah.
did. And I mean, that was a long walk I was taking with my husband, and we came across the chickens were, you know, and the roosters were in the road, and then the lady said, I call it Here Henry, because they were all Henry. She goes, Here Henry, and they were all coming. And I said, do you mind if I capture this? No, you know. So it's kind of, you know, it makes you notice things in life a little bit more in a different way because you're capturing it for another view, to share what you see with other people in a different way. So I kind of, you know, like just today coming here, I stopped 2 or 3 times because the spring colors are so beautiful right now. And sometimes you'll see something and you just have to catch it. So it's a cool thing.
Now, are we back to Italy?
Yes, that was a quick trip, wasn't it? You know, we went from Boston to
But
Italy.
I'm willing to keep going back there.
Well, you know, this is what happens a lot of times. You paint on location, whether it be a landscape or still life, and it's a little fresh, and it's, you know, it's whatever you can get in that time frame, especially if you're outside and you are doing like the lighting is changing fast. You really have to capture it and make your notes. But when you get back in the studio, I happen to also work a full-time job. So when you get back in the studio and you only have so much time to paint, you use your reference and you use what you've painted already in some of your notes. And so these are both, as you can see, it's the same, it's actually the same vase that they're in. And these are some continued sketches or paintings of the same vase. It was just looking at it from a different angle. And for me, sometimes when I look at them, it brings me right back to that time in Italy. And that's why I think, you know, sometimes when you paint, if people buy a painting because it reminds them of a place that they've been, if you can bring someone back to a vacation spot that makes them feel relaxed, or makes them feel like, oh, I remember, you know, that day at the Cape or whatever. So I do paint a lot of marsh scenes and things. Then to me, that's a gift. You know, and I love painting it, and if they love looking at it, then I think that's a nice thing to do. Yeah.
I think too that I found, you know, working with the co-op and the gallery too, that people really like to know the artist.
Oh.
They like to connect with the energy of the artist, and that's very important to them.
Yeah.
So that if you've traveled and you've been excited about the same places as you said, that makes a real impact.
Yeah, people do, and I think it's really important. So I love it when I come in. You know, we had a show here recently where I spoke to the gentleman, and he told me, I want a marsh painting. I've been waiting for it. And so it's always nice to be able to say, you know, where is this? You know, to be able to share that. And so I truly appreciate being able to talk to the person, and sometimes meeting up with them after and asking them, you know, did you find the right spot, you know, and it's very, makes you feel just great.
Yeah,
you know?
and he did, by the way.
Yeah.
He's a 30-year friend of mine.
Oh, that's funny, because he said, I've always wanted a marsh painting.
I know.
Yeah.
So Ray Mack, you know you bought that painting and you're happy with it.
Yeah, that was great. It was really nice because he went upstairs, he went around, he came back, he said, no, that's the one I want. And I said, well, thank you. It's an honor. You know, anytime, Carolyn, someone wants to buy a painting, you just feel just honored. That's all you can. It's, you know, you don't take it for granted.
Right.
I mean, you paint a lot of paintings out of love and joy and pure pleasure. You know, first of all, it de-stresses me. It gives me a different kind of stress, but a good kind of stress. You know. But when someone wants to purchase it, and then they really feel like out of all these paintings, they want that one. You said it's speaking to you, and so to me, it's really gratifying, and just makes me want to keep painting. Yeah.
Carol, now we're down to the last 3 pieces you have hung here, so tell us a little about each one.
Well, as you can see, we're on the sunflowers thing still here. And actually, this one was one of those things where I wanted to create a surface. You know, I said I painted quite often, most often, with a sanded paper. But an artist can create their own surface, and they use a pumice, and sometimes it's marble dust. And I have to say, and there's one thing I didn't mention earlier, is all the components of pastel, whether it be the pastels themselves or creating the surface, a lot of the stuff is, I want to say, it's kind of toxic because it's cadmiums, and, you know, pastel dust is very, very fine. So isn't marble dust, and, you know, you're thinking it's actually the dust of marble, you know, which is a stone. So I am very cautious, and I think you can't be too cautious, but some people wear masks, some people wear gloves. I don't happen to do that, but I do have a ventilation system, especially for pastels, so my pastel sits and there's air that's pulling any of that dust. So this was a case of wanting to create my own surface. So it's not as smooth, and it's a little rougher, and it's just a different challenge. But I think when you keep painting, you just want to try different things. I was at a workshop last week, a different way of looking at it. the way she paints, but I was in awe, and now I came, all of us, we were home that night, and by the next day we're like, we were trying it, we were doing
Yeah.
it. So, sometimes I kind of don't take too many workshops, because what happens is sometimes you say, what is my style, But that was, what I was doing here. And of course, this is looking at two marsh scenes, and they're totally different feel, because one is very cool, and it doesn't happen to be the same area, but that's the thing, is this is very cool, and then I could change the color and just decide exactly what color I wanted. And so I wanted to warm up and make it an orange sky. I wanted it to be the warmest marsh that I could create. So, and then, sizes and what you want it to look like. And I like to work in squares, but I also like that nice long piece that you might put over a mantle or something. So I just love all the parts of creating art, and even talking about it with you here
Yeah.
today. So I really appreciate this opportunity.
Well, we appreciate having you.
Thank you.
And this is Karole Nicholson, and do stop by at the cable station, Eastern Community Access Television, and see her work.
Thanks, Carolyn.
Thank you.